Welcome back to another version of What a Shout, brought to you by the Racing Post and our sponsors Bet365. What a weekend we have for you. Just a small matter of the Betfair chase up at Haydock. Really good card at Ascot and elsewhere in the land as well. Myself, Dave Orton, back with you. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, hashtag What a Shout. Get your questions in for the panellists. Let's find out who we have for you. Ooh, we brought in a big hitter this weekend. You may be in lockdown, but you're going to put your feet up and enjoy some absolute pearls from Kim Bailey, all the way down in Cheltenham. The big hitting trainer himself. There he is. Kim, great to have you on.
Thank you. Good to be there. Really
good timing. We'll get to Ascot, of course. But Kim, another great season for you. What a weird year we're having. But your strike rate of 24% since racing's resumption, you've got to be happy with that.
Yeah, no, I'm delighted, really. We started off a little bit slowly, but we got going. And we, like a lot of people, our horses had a longer break this year than they've had for a while because of lockdown. And it's just taken a bit longer to get more fit, but they're healthy and they're well, and they've been really enjoying their time, which is a very important situation.
Your strike rates all over the place, Kim, are fantastic, actually. You heard in on certain tracks, on certain races as well. Kim's been training longer than I've been in the game. Not quite as long as you've been in the game, of course, Paul Kealy. And we had Pat Cooney on last week declaring his admiration for the training skills of Kerry Lee. We're notching it up a level because I think Kim's biggest fan is sitting in the studio with me.
Definitely for this year anyway, with Imperial Aura, who's obviously running on Saturday.
Ring the bell!
My favourite horse in training at the moment. But no, I mean, you would follow Kim for years. I remember I wouldn't say I was a kid, but I was in my 20s, it was 1995. I think it was the day before the Kingwell Hurdle. And there's a little column in The Sun of all places, and it just said, Kim Bailey said, I see he's 50 to 1 for the champion hurdle. He won't be after tomorrow.
This is Alderbrook.
This is Alderbrook, yeah. And ran down the road, 10 of each way at 50 to 1. Comes in, lovely meal in Wimbledon Village afterwards. It was great.
Is that right?
Fantastic, yeah.
Amazing how you remember these things.
We all went out.
Isn't it?
Oh, it was just one of those. Like, you know, we're going to do that. We backed him. He was 8 to 1 to win the Kingwell as well. He did so on the bridle. And when you look at what a horse Alderbrook was as well, you know, he was second in the Prix Gannet a month after winning the champion hurdle. And his final run over hurdles was in the Scottish champion hurdle, when the Scottish champion hurdle was a proper race, of a mark of 176. And he won on the bridle, a big horse called Escarta Figue for Martin Punk. He went on to be a Grade 1 chaser. Yeah. Amazing. And was, I think, 2 stone out of the handicap because of how good Alderbrook was.
When hurdlers used to run off huge marks.
They don't tend to run in handicaps anymore. I think it's not since Booster, really, in the old trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Great Hurdle, of course, yeah, which has just gone by. So look, Kim, it's we're going to talk about your current big hitters, but that's not the only big race you've won, of course. And I want to bring in Pat Cooney now from our sponsors, Bet365, who has a question for you.
Yes, Kim, the Bet365 viewers would like to know, you're one of a select band of trainers who's trained the winner of the Champion Hurdle, the Cheltenham Gold Cup, and the Grand National. If you could pick one of those races to win again, what would it be?
Champion Hurdle. Definitely the Champion Hurdle. For the very simple reason, I never ever expected to have a horse good enough to win the Champion Hurdle. The horse was he had loads of problems. We had a terrible job. We trained him on a water treadmill. He was the toughest individual I'd ever come across, and it was a moment that I should never forget because it was something I never expected. I've always been keen on my chases, and the National was great, and the Gold Cup was fantastic. They both were, but to have the unique situation of training a Champion Hurdle was something I wasn't expecting.
We need to be looking out for that speedy 2-miler then, Kim, don't we? We'll get to Kim's runners coming up, of course, in the next couple of days and indeed in the next couple of weeks. Let's have a look at what we've got coming up on this week's show. It's an absolute belter, and we will be looking at the hot topic, Get It Right. Things happen in threes, BHA. I hope you're listening. Of course, we'll be looking at the racing clues. That was just a small matter of the November meeting at Cheltenham. Great meeting at Punchestown as well. We'll get the panellists' views on that. We will be previewing 4 beautiful big races for you, along with the big calls and the all-important weekend winners. Okay, if you've not signed up to our sponsors Bet365, now's a perfectly good time to do it. Why? Because we have a referral code every week this runs. It's SHOUT365. Type that in when you're signing up. A minimum deposit of £5 for up to 100 bed credits. Terms and conditions, they do apply. On to the hot topic we go then. Get it right. Whew. Last weekend was very topical news-wise, wasn't it? Of course, lovely to see the ITV television screens go down to Taunton. The first race they had, absolute controversy. Luke Harvey goes up, sticks a mic in the winning rider Alexander Thorne's face, and of course he forgets to weigh in. Alexander Thorne, unlucky then to come out and win the last race. If you watch back Fakenham in the week, you'll see Alexander rode a horse that unfortunately came down at last. Confidence, I think we can say, is shot. Kim Bailey, what on earth went on there?
Well, it's a very unfortunate situation for anybody to have that situation happen to them. The biggest problem we have at the moment with this whole new lockdown situation on racecourses, everything has changed. The weighing is not where it was. The jockeys come out of a different area. So you get really confused. It's no one's fault. No, that's the wrong way of putting it. It's everybody's fault, because actually whatever happened should never have happened. ITV were there to take over, and they interviewed the poor lad after he won the race. He then got muddled. There should have been somebody there to make sure he went the right direction. I know it's the jockey's fault, but the racecourse are as much to blame as anybody else, because they've got to look after and make sure, because everything has changed and everything's different, to make sure these young lads go to the right place afterwards.
Absolutely, yeah. You'd think with all the COVID stewards, Paul Kealy, there should have been an usher there or something, shouldn't there?
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a young lad who showed real skills in the saddle. Easy to say that. You always say, don't you, really good saddle. But Alexander genuinely was. Great jockey over a fence last year.
He'll get over it, might take
21-day ban.
21 days, you know, but he will get over it, and he'll come back. And you know, I think the ban's a bit harsh given the situation, but there isn't much point in appealing it, I don't suppose.
Yeah. What did we make of Sunday at Fontwell? Dharma Rain, the last race on Sunday.
Well, I mean, that's just that was just very strange.
There was an omitted hurdle, wasn't there?
There was
the
an
only
hurdle,
one.
and I think, you know, I don't know what the rules are when they go out with their signs and whatever. But for all of them to get it wrong, it must mean there must be some confusion.
Well, the jockeys didn't get a ban, Kills, of course.
But yeah, exactly. So you know, there was a bit of leeway there, none for Alex Thorne, which, you know, doesn't seem fair.
These things have been happening, though, haven't they? You think by now, especially when there's, you know, no crowds at racecourses, they just have to concentrate on.
You know, I suppose you're talking about live sport happening with live animals and danger on the track, etc. People have got to react really quickly. It's not as easy as we say, but you know, to the outsider, it makes the sport look very amateurish.
Yeah, Kim, let's come to you, because sandwiching this, a final race at Cheltenham on Saturday. Remarkable scenes in the mayor's bumper when a dead heat was called, and it looked quite clearly to most eyes that the horse on the near side, Ishkara Lady, saw off Este Bell of Dan Skelton's. Great finish. It was quite clear that Harry Fries had got up, wasn't it?
Well, I think probably you're right, and it's a really difficult situation, because on that day it was dark by about 2 o'clock, let alone by 3:30. And it was a pretty miserable day, and you know, it was raining, everything was against it. You have lights at all weather courses, so I suppose we're going to have a situation when we have racing late as they do. It will need lights, but it's very unfortunate, because under normal circumstances, that sort of day would be absolutely fine. But it was a shocker of a day, and it was, as I say, it was dark early in the afternoon, let alone by the time they raced that race. Very unfortunate.
Yeah. But you can't underestimate how dark it can get when them dark clouds come over. I mean, you know, I had to put the lights on my house yesterday at midday.
So this was all because to do with low sun in previous years. We have had issues at the meeting, haven't we, in previous years?
Yeah, when it's why the chases are early. The Paddy Power on the card comes at a really early time.
It was quite clear, though, there was not going to be much sun on the day, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I didn't know it was going to get that dark. You know what I mean?
It does, though. Historically, it's not a good time.
But I still think, looking at that photo, even the grainy photo, I still think it looked like Ishkara Lady won. Now, it's 33 on in the photo.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and they can't call it.
You got involved there, didn't you?
Well, I got lucky. I wasn't. I'd backed Ishkara Lady. I wasn't convinced when they flashed past the post.
So, I thought was the second.
So I laid the 33 on, but. When I saw the freeze frame, I thought, oh, well, I've just given a few quid back, and I couldn't believe it. I actually ended up making more money but even so, I don't think it's satisfactory.
Harry Fry spoke very graciously afterwards. Racing does tend to look after its own. That did happen, but Pat Cooney, in the days of technology...
It'd have been an appeal if it was a Grade 1, though, wouldn't it?
Well, absolutely, quite right, yes, indeed. And we move on. But Pat Cooney, remarkable scene. Surely we've got to do better than this.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say, Dave, most bookmakers, and certainly Bet365, we paid out on the double result in all of those 3 examples. So, you know, a bit of praise for the bookmakers for a change, maybe. I mean, we paid out on the first, second, and third in the Fontwell race, double result Cheltenham, and the Alexander Thorne one. I think of Alexander Thorne, You know, Connor King got a 10-day ban for it happening 6 years ago. Connor King, Alexander Thorne, surely 21 should go down to 10 as a minimum for him. But as I say, he'll get over it. And if anything, he's become more of a household name in the bizarre circumstances. And then he just ordinarily won the race. So I'm sure there'll be some goodwill attached to him going forward.
Yeah, racing's done so well this year in keeping the show on the road, lifting everyone's spirits, great spectacle, biosecurity, absolutely second class. But they say things happen in threes. Certainly did last weekend. Right then, racing clues from Cheltenham. Let's get back on to the positive, because we saw some really, really good performances. And I don't know, we were talking throughout last weekend, Kills, about have we seen anything from this meeting? Do we still see Cheltenham Festival winners at the meeting? I think we're not flattering Kim by saying probably the one to take out of it for the meeting was Does He Know the Albert Bartlett?
There's definitely one or two to take out of it. I mean, I think people watch these races and they see them at the time, and you get a lot of negative reactions from people, but you know, these meetings sort of stand the test of time. They're good horses that run there.
Alan King called the ground a joke.
Well, I think he was talking about how soft it was rather than anything actually wrong with the course, because he didn't think it should be that soft that time of year. Now, I think there's been a long-term problem with overwatering at every track in the country, and I don't think Cheltenham would be, on their own there by any stretch of the imagination. But I think the clerk, of course, said they'd had quite a lot of rain anyway, and they hadn't actually put that much on for the October meeting, which is what Alan King was moaning about. But I think in general, the last few years, its ground has been really bad at the November meeting, and it only gets worse for the rest of the season. Yeah, let's go back to equine performances. Does he know? Come on, Kim, we've got one here, hasn't he? You must have been absolutely delighted by him taking out the old Ballymore.
Oh, I was absolutely thrilled. I have to say that I was surprised that he won like he did the time before, and we went into Saturday's race or Friday's race with an awful lot more confidence than we did the meeting before. He's an extraordinary horse. He's not the biggest. He's an ex-English pointer, which is also a great club in the country. He doesn't have a great pedigree, to the extent that his harvest is currently an eventer. Situation. They rang me and said, "Would I be interested in buying her?" He's a progressive horse, and he'll be better over further. And I like him. He's a nice individual. It looks like the Albert Bartlett may be the way to go, then, Kim. I would say probably that's the ultimate thought is Cheltenham. From the owner's point of view, they'd love to have a runner at Cheltenham. He has every right to be sitting on that fence at the moment to be going. We might look at the Challow hurdle between now and then, but a lot will depend on conditions and see how he comes out the race. He's had a quiet week this week, so we got a bit of time on our side. Oh, that's exciting, isn't it? I'd love to see him in the Challow. What about the Paddy Power Gold Cup? Well, it was funny. Cody. It was funny looking at going into the race. I mean, I went for one of the lower handicap second season chasers, because all the other ones, they had really high marks. All the ones that were ahead of the market had marks higher than usually win it, and then you get one down the bottom of the weights. It's almost like trends-wise it was there. And of course, he made all the running. Yeah. Now, is there a better track in the country for making the running?
Doesn't seem to be.
And racing prominently.
This is on the chase course.
Well, done 2.5 mile round Cheltenham. Yeah. Time and time again, race prominently round there, you got a massive chance. If you remember Yarla Enki getting picked up, of course, by Ramses Detaille, everything seemed to need to lead, doesn't it? What do we take for the form then? Pinch of salt or? No, I think the winner's won quite well. I think obviously he'd stolen the lead, but he had to run those fractions to get it, and he was always going to win, wasn't he? He won at the meeting as a hurdler, didn't he? For Evan Williams, got another one back in the big time. December Gold Cup for Cool Cody then. Right then, Pat Cooney, I want to come to you on Sunday at Punchestown. Lovely card there, very informative, but of course the main race was the Morgiana. Abacadabras took it out for Gordon Elliott. Lots said about the ride on Saint Ra though, and did the best horse actually lose? What sort of ripple did that make on the Champion Hurdle market?
Well, it was cloudy, really, wasn't it, afterwards? I think with Saint Ra, its finest hour came in Cheltenham last year, and I think it was a 24-runner handicap. So that's probably what he wants, a fast-run race where he could be held up and so forth. You could see the disaster happening, couldn't you, coming to the second last? I suppose he was the best horse in the race. He was odds-on Sunday. If they went back down to the start and reran it, I suppose it'd be odds-on once again to win it. But credit to the winner, Abacadabra. He does idle in front as well. So just a very unsatisfactory race, really. And as for Cheltenham, I think they're both about 8-1. But they both have to come out and impress once again, I think, really. Yeah, week Saturday, Epatante going to come out, we think, for the fighting fifth. Smooth gallop, wasn't it? What did you make of it quickly?
Yes, I mean, I don't pay that much attention to gallops, but she was running all over Altior, wasn't she? I always thought that, when you see Altior race, he takes a little bit of time to hit top gear anyway. But I mean, if you're just looking at that, but we don't know what weights they were carrying. Yeah. What level of fitness they were at between them. So
Abacadabras and Sanoir, can one of them take out the champion? Or?
They got more to prove. Obviously, they've got more to prove. I mean,
slow motion finish, wasn't it?
Well, it's soft ground, and they're all taking a tug early, and neither of them want a small field, slow pace. So let's wait and see. I'm a fan of both of the horses, but Epatante is at the top, and they've got to get there.
Yeah, absolutely, they do have to get there. So, a few muddled pictures everywhere, but not going for the Albert Bartlett. Of course, we have a real runner in Does He Know? Let's get to your first big race previews then. 2:05 at Ascot. Just the 4 runners. We hope they all take part. It's the Farmer Chase, Grade 2, won by some absolute worldies over the year. Mastermindeds, etc. And recently as well, Seared Ames and the likes. And do we have another worldie here, Paul Kealy, in the race?
We might have. He's got something to prove though at these weights, I think, and I think that's fair to say. I want to see him win. I don't think I'll be rushing to back him at 7 to 4.
This is Imperial Aura.
We're talking Imperial Aura.
Ring the bell.
I thought he ran a cracker at Carlisle.
He did,
and he just jumps really, really well. And it's his trip. I think he'll probably end up getting 3 miles in time, but this is very much his trip. He's a strong stayer at it. His jumper will keep him in good stead, but he's got an official mark of 157. He's carrying 11 stone 5. Black Corton's got an official mark of 160 and is carrying 11 stone 1. Real Steel is rated 166. So he has to improve. Now he's the one horse in the race that can improve, obviously, but he still needs to. So if I'm going to say, will he win? I hope so, because I do love the horse for obvious reasons. Yeah. But at the same token, I wouldn't be rushing to back him at 7 to 4 at these weights.
Interesting. Real Steel, of course, inherited recently.
Yeah, interesting.
Paul
I can't
Nicholls.
find a horse of Paul Nicholls that has come from Willie Mullins that has won first time yet.
No,
some have run well. Duke de Ginevra ran really well at Cheltenham, but I don't think any of them have won yet.
He all but won, didn't he?
Yes, yeah. I mean, he tanked the way through it. But these are 4 good horses, and at the weights, if I was going to have a bet, it'd be on Black Corton because he's got the advantage at the weight.
He's a lot more exposed, isn't he?
He is a lot more.
He'll tow them along, do you think?
He is a lot more exposed. He might tow them along. He might get an easy lead. But obviously, Imperial Aura can, if need be up there and not be far off.
Should we go to the man that knows?
Let's go to the man that knows. How good can Imperial Aura be?
Well, I mean, all last season was geared to try and win the race at Cheltenham, which he did. He showed, I thought, improved performance when he ran to Carlisle the other day. And from what we've seen at home, he's improved again since then. He's going to need to improve an awful lot to go and beat Paul Nicholls' horse, because we are 11 pounds wrong on him. So, but I'm very happy. We have to go for these races now. We're pushed in that direction. It's a big day for him. It's a big day for the owners because they've got a fancied horse up at Haydock as well. And I'm really happy with him. He's good enough to win tomorrow. He will win, and that's the way I look upon it. If he's not good enough, then we know where we are.
Interesting. And Kim, I've got 2 questions about the horse before we go to Pat Cooney. Ground, he sort of showed. I thought last year you had a tendency to try and look for the better ground with him. At Carlisle, he answered that question, didn't he?
We've never had a doubt about the ground. We probably life's all about fate. We ran him at Carlisle in a novice hurdle when he broke the track record, and the ground was very, very quick that day, obviously because he broke the track record. But he had sore shins as a result of it, which gave him most of the season off. He had 1 more run over hurdles as a result of it. It probably did, in hindsight, the world of good, because it gave him time to strengthen up and mature. And we started off last year in a 3-mile novice chase around Cheltenham. We ran 3 miles around Cheltenham. He gets the trip, but he's got plenty of speed, and he's a very agile, very adaptable horse.
And all being well, Kim, I suppose the Ryanair will be the big March target.
Well, I mean, tomorrow's it pushes that one way or direction, one way or the other. Really. I mean, if he's go and win that tomorrow, then Ryanair becomes the must-have race for him.
It's going to be a belter, this, isn't it? Pat Cooney, how are we looking on this?
Well, Kim's horse Imperial Aura is just about favourite at the moment from Real Steel, and he's a very likeable horse, isn't he, Kim's fella? So I think, yes, I get it. He's got a bit to do on official ratings and so forth, but he's certainly got an upward profile. And of course, he won so handily 20 odd days ago. Real Steel, we've not seen him for a while. I can see him winning for sure, but it's hard to draw a line through any of the four. But I suppose with Black Orton in the race, you know they're going to go good, proper, sensible gallop. Itchy Feet, of course, is a class act as well. All four have a chance. I think if you're having your jackpots or your play spot, you probably put all four in. But I'll give the nod to Imperial Aura. I think he's the horse that's really going places. That's
a firm nod from me as well. We've all got a bit of an aura. Paul Kealy's is Imperial. Okay, let's go to Haydock then. Big jumps meeting of the season. 225 is the Grade 3 stayers handicap. This used to be over the fixed brush, of course. I only recently reminded myself, of course, after a long flat season, they don't have them there anymore.
No, they don't have them anymore. I think the last 3 years, I think they took them away. I quite liked it, actually. But
yes, so did I.
You'd get the odd chaser that was, you know, reasonably well in on a hurdles and would run well. Chris Linning won it, didn't he, if you remember?
Of course.
And obviously Diamond Harry won it before he went chasing, I think.
You associate with the Pipe Yard as well. Where's the Kealy Arrow gone?
Yeah, well, the Kealy Arrow, I've backed two. One of them down the bottom of the weight is called Cooney for Ollie Murphy. It's funny, last year he was looking like a horse that was getting outpaced and staying on late over, you know, 2 mile 5 furlong on bad ground. And he's just crying out for a step up to 3 mile, but he returned this year over 2 mile 3 at Fontwell and travelled best of all. And quickened up nicely when asked, got in a little bit of trouble going to the last. To me, that's a sign of a horse that's improved quite dramatically, because he couldn't go, you know, couldn't go with him last year. So hopefully he will definitely stay.
It's a funny test, this, isn't it? Because sharp track, as we know, and
sharp track, but long running
and deep ground always, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be as deep as, you know, they were talking about. They might get 2 or 3 mil every day, but I don't think it's going to be as deep as it has been over the years. But yeah, long running does make it a test. And the other one I like because of the flat track is Third Wind. I think he's quite classy. Obviously chasing didn't go well for him. He had one crack at it, but then he won a race at Wincanton and then finished 4th in the Pertemps. He travels really well. Not 100% certain how much he finds, so the long running might be a bit of a worry. But you know, let's not hold it against him. It's still early days for him.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's just a horse.
But this is fiercely competitive. 17 runners.
Yeah. Who's going to go off Fav?
Well, they're talking about the Jam Man, Mike, because obviously he won the Troy Town at Neville. But you know, put that in perspective. A mark of 129 over fences.
He's back in the...
And he's back, he's 148 over hurdles. It's slightly different.
But he's had a remarkable run, hasn't
doesn't mean he can't win, because he's got hurdles form that much better.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, I like one at the, you know, bottom of the weights, Cooney, and Third Wind, I think, has got a bit of class.
Yeah, Third Wind for me. Kim Bailey, you mentioned the Imperial Aura owners have one. Imperial Alcazar looks well fancied.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big weekend for Imperial Racing, and you know, he's a good horse. He beat me last year up at Newcastle in the Furs race with I had Espada Ramee. We went down on the nod, and yeah, I followed him for a long time, and you know, he just trained across the valley from here, and you know, I know they're very confident of a huge race from him.
Very interesting indeed. Pat Cooney, who are you going with?
I'm going to go for Relegate, the mare who won the Cheltenham Champion Bumper 2 years ago. And I was looking at her run at the Cheltenham Festival last year. She finished 5th in the Pertemps. And Paul Townend, I thought, gave her out an awful lot to do. I think he was out the back door. Only the ambulance was behind him for most of the trip. And she came running on very stoutly. I think she should have been a lot nearer that day. She's got Robbie Power on today and cheek pieces for the first time. So the form figures 5-4, 5-4. Don't, I think, tell the true story with her. I think she'd run a big race.
She's interesting. If she gets over the hurdles, she walks through them all, doesn't she? That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the one, isn't it?
Yeah, she's obviously a champion bumper winner, though. That's the class of race it is. Right then, time for the big calls this weekend. Going to get Paul Kealy take the steal. What have we got?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, the old adage, never be afraid of one horse. Right? The market's just so afraid of Envoy Allen and the Marsh Chaser. There has to be some value elsewhere. And we saw it at the weekend.
We did?
Protectorate.
Ah.
Now, I don't care what the horse did over hurdles. As a front-running chaser, he has just taken off. He jumps like an absolute stag. He went round Cheltenham like a bunny. He won by 17 lengths. He recorded a racing post rating of 160. Since the Marsh or old JLT became a graded race rather than the handicap, Only one winner has run an RPR higher than 165. That was Votor, who was like way above. So Protectorat is already good enough to finish in the frame. There is no better course, no better distance at Cheltenham to be a front runner than 2.5 miles. That's what it'd be. You get a really aggressive ride from Harry Skelton, who's good from the front. He's 20 to 1. He cannot finish out the frame. He'd be second favourite when they go there. There's horses ahead of him in the betting that I don't even understand. And yeah, I just think he should be second favourite now at about 10s. So the fact that he's 20s, he's twice the price he should be. 5 to 1 to finish in the frame, 4 to 1 to finish in the frame. Great value.
Another long-term project going against the grain, Paul Kealy. Pat Cooney.
Yeah, I was interested to watch the Winter Carnival gallops being screened at Newbury last week, and of course we saw Altior, Epatante, and Kim Bailey actually ran a couple as well, I believe, as did Emma Lavelle. I was just wondering, is it more of a nuisance than anything for Kim when we all suddenly become these experts watching the likes of Vindication jumping right, and they might just be doing stuff that they normally do at home without a care in the world? And does Kim think there should be one for Cheltenham maybe?
Well, I have to say that from a trainer's point of view, they're not the most enjoyable experiences because it's not going to go wrong. It's going to go wrong when you do those situations. I took Vindication to Newbury School a couple of seasons ago. If you thought he jumped badly this time, it was an awful lot worse last time. You like to do these things when no one else is looking. So to have the whole thing blazoned on Racing UK is not really what you want to have.
Did they stick a mic in your face and you forgot to go in the wrong room?
Anyway, so we schooled him the following day. He was back to normal. I just think when we went there, it was very fresh. They galloped round the bend, flat out, and suddenly a fence appears at him. And he's a quirky individual, Vindication, with an awful lot of ability. And it was difficult for him. And it was difficult. Kieran Getting never sat on him before. So the whole thing, in my respect, was a difficult day out, and I can't say I really enjoyed it too much. Might be a good PR company, but that's about as far as it goes, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so whoever's tapping up these things for 2021, maybe don't expect to see Kim next year. I just want to pick up on something, Kim, there you said about Vindication, and maybe this will point us towards the big race, the Handicap Chase Ladbrokes Trophy next weekend, of course, at Newbury. You've got 2 in it, of course, 2 for gold. I assume you're leaning more towards Vindication at the moment, but you said he was a bit quirky there. That's interesting. As a big fan of the horse, he just looks like he looks fairly straightforward to me.
Well, I think like all good horses, they need a bit of a quirk to be good, and he's a bit of a show-off. He likes playing around. He's a horse that gets very fresh very, very easily, he's a horse that will, in situations like that, will most probably fight the living daylights out of you. But he is a good jumper, and he's been round Cheltenham twice, jumped fantastically well, and when he's on the wrong stride, he will naturally lug right-handed, and that's the way he's always been. But it won't stop him from going left-handed. And I think you have to walk away from what you saw at Newbury this week and just put that behind you and say you haven't seen it, because I think he'd be absolutely fine on the day if he goes there. Yeah,
I assume he's come out of the Charlie Hall well. You bumped into a real top-notch seer name that day, didn't you?
Well, I mean, at the end of it, we had to take the chance. We really need to find out whether he's good enough to think about Gold Cup. We could have gone to Ascot that day, and on all known form, he would have probably won. We had to take on Surname for the simple reason he hadn't won over 3 miles. He hadn't won left-handed. Paul Nicholls again showed how brilliant he is. I mean, it was a phenomenal performance. The horse never came off the bridle. It was 17 pounds in hand, and he won like he had 1 stone and 2 stone in hand.
It was an absolute crawl, though, which wouldn't have suited your fella, would it? I mean, they went slowly for a 3-mile race.
Yeah, I mean, the horse that comes out of the race is I Right, which is currently favourite for the Hennessy, the Ladbrokes. He was, I thought, impressive that day. He wasn't that far behind us. We're on worse terms with him. So come on, it's a great race. It's a race I've never won, so I'd like to win it, but I haven't had very many runners in it either. So I always think it's probably the hardest handicap of the season to win.
Okay, great insight there from Kim. I've got a big call. These big calls, we speak off air sometimes when we come into the studio, don't we? And we say, it's hard to keep doing them every week.
Well, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Week after week after
That's
week,
why I come
man.
up with horses. Punting is the only thing I know about.
Well, yeah, exactly. That don't always go right either. But it's like the Eurovision Song Contest, right? The first country that come out, they could be brilliant, but by the end, you've completely forgotten about who you're going to vote for.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that with Big Calls for Me. I had one on Monday. I was like, oh, that's a fantastic one. Now, and it comes to Friday morning when we film the show, I've kind of forgotten about it. However, while Kim's on, you have one flat horse in training, don't you, Kim? It's Blaze On. He didn't half catch my eye, you know, on the all-weather at Kempton. Yeah,
he ran very well. As I say, Jim Crowley was the first time we sat on him. We like to try and come wide on him. He was stuck on the inside, and the gap opened up really rather large, and he got there almost too soon. It was a good run. He hates running on grass, and he showed absolutely no form this summer whatsoever. And back on the all-weather, he's got a winter ahead of him, and hopefully he'll get into a run now. That would have done him the world of good, confidence-wise. So hopefully he'll move on from there.
A champion all-weather jumper in the making. If only we had such things. But Blaze On, I reckon he's going to win again soon. Okay, 240. Let's go back to Ascot then. It is the Ascot Hurdle, one of my favourite races of the year, this, I have to say. Remember, Four Heen's gone up, Oscar Whiskey, the like, so that's some great horses. It's usually a small field, Kim Bailey, but just the 3 runners this year. Where are all the jumpers?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because Gary Moore obviously had a problem. I'm not really quite sure why he's not running the course, but we're all looking forward to seeing him running this race. But it is sad. Ascot has a big problem. They do have many occasions when they have less runners than perhaps they should do. This is actually not a bad race. I know it's only 3 runners, but it's a decent race. You were talking about earlier on about Paul Nicholls not having a winner first time out for the horses from Willie Mullins, where we're here again with Lorena, who's in her heyday was a phenomenal horse. But you can look at the race, any 3 of them could win because they're all so closely matched. And I'm going to go and talk about the outsider of Tom Simmons. His horse is running unbelievably well this year, and he's got some pretty useful form there. He just could be the surprise package in a 3-horse race.
That's interesting. Stars are aligning then, Paul Kealy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I one of the things, if you could guarantee Lorena was back to her best, then she'd be odds on getting all that weight from him. She's getting the best part of a stone from the other 2.
Yeah.
I never actually thought she was as good as everybody thought she was when she was beating up these, average mares all the time, and then she got shown up in the champion hurdle. But she seemed to have lost her way and lost interest.
They went fencing, didn't they?
Went fencing.
Didn't work out.
She started great, didn't she? She thrashed Manila Indo.
Yeah.
But then after that, she didn't seem to enjoy it. She's had bleeding problems.
She has.
So who knows what to expect?
Yes, you would imagine that with the Jared Sullivan horses that have come over from Willie Mullins to Paul Nicholls, this was the one that there was a bit of pressure on, I would imagine.
Well, I think there's pressure on a fair few, to be honest. I mean, you're getting paid a fair amount of money to bring some good horses home, and you want to get some results, don't you? And he doesn't suffer fools either, Jared Sullivan. Let's put it that way. But I would say that you have to take her on. Just because she may have simply gone at the game, and for someone's really, really tough and game horse. I was at Kempton when he won on his last run in February last year, and that 2-mile trip round there was way too short for him. But he just kept on trying, and he pulled it out of the fire. This 2-mile 3.5 soft ground is absolutely perfect.
Getting lots of weight.
He's not getting lots of weight. No.
Oh, sorry.
No. She's getting lots of weight.
She?
Yeah, Lorena. He and Call Me Lord have got 11.6. She's got 10.7. But I think this is an improving horse. He's only 5. He definitely wants 2.5. May end up wanting further. But he's tough. He's game. He won first time out last season. I see him going well.
Tom Simmons having a good time of it so far this season. Those ex-David Dennis horses have found an extra leg, haven't they? Call Me Lord for me. Still don't know how he didn't get up in this race last year. I think the 3-race peg suits him really, really well. And I'll just about go for him. Pat Cooney.
Yeah, I think if you're only as good as your last couple of races, then it's desperately hard to fancy Lorena, isn't it? I mean, she's been really, really disappointing those 3 runs. I will say she has had a wind up since coming to Paul Nicholls. And at the weight, you look at her, don't you? She's getting £13. It sounds a lot, but I'd be very hard pushed to back her on her form figures. PP3, very disappointing. I hope she comes back in business. I just think Call Me Lord is probably the most dependable option. And of course, he only ran 2 weeks ago. The other 2 haven't run this season. So with Call Me Lord, you've got a class act, can win. I just look at Lorena. I wish her well, but you've got to be laying her at that price.
Okay, interesting. 2-way split for the team. Unprecedented scenes here on What a Shout. We signed off from the big calls and the big hitting trainer said he had a gripe. Kim Bailey, let's go to you. What's on your mind?
Well, I just think that owners in this business are not well looked after. I mean, without owners, we're completely stuck. We need them. They're the ones who supply the money. So when we have a televised race, whether it be on Racing UK, at the races or ITV, they are not mentioned. It is trained by Kim Bailey, ridden by David Bass, in the occasional situation where you have the lad runner. Where is the owner's name? The owner's name should be lit up in lights and he should be mentioned. It doesn't matter if it's a syndicate, partnership or whatever. That man, that owner, that team need to be recognised for what they've done. And I think it's an absolute disgrace that all the TVs fail to mention it. They really need to do that, especially now. You know, owners can't go racing. They need to see their name in lights. Otherwise, why do they do it?
No, great shout. I can see why Kim came on now. I thought we wanted to talk about Imperial Aura and Vinndication. You've got your gripe out the way. And I'll tell you what, my name's Dave Orton. I'm still learning about this game. Never cut off a leading trainer. OK, the pièce de la résistance of the jump racing weekend is the 3 o'clock at Haydock this weekend. It is the Betfair Chase. Another small field. Really, I think we can get it down to 3 warriors, can't we? We got the 1-2 from last year's race, Paul Kealy. Lost in translation, saw off Bristol to Mai. Over the years called Bristol to Haydock. Why? Because he absolutely skullduggered the field in the last 2 previous runnings of the race. And we've got Clan de Zobo, who was beaten in the race last year. Is this a bit of a guess-up?
It's harder to work out than you'd really think that a 5-runner, you know, boil it down to 3 should be. Obviously Bristol de Moy has got some tremendous form round there. Getting on a bit, disappointed in the Gold Cup, poor run there, but comes alive at Haydock. Lost in translation was running all over him last year and beat him quite easily. And then you've got Clan de Zobo. Now we all think, I mean, I said in the weekend, the actual, you know, the way I see it is Lost in Translation will beat Bristol de Moy again, and Clan de Zobo will come on and be rip-roaring ready for the King George. Yes. That's what we all think. But Paul Nicholls is having winners all over the place. 30%, 34% strike rate in the last fortnight. He's won the Betfair Chase 6 times.
Yeah.
You know, so why shouldn't Clan de Zobo be a bit more ready? He said in his stable tour he thinks he's improved again this year. If he has, you know, his King George form says he's the best race yet. He's the outsider of those 3.
It's not the first time he said that about the horse, is it? He said it going into Gold Cups.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, but he's now, you know, bitten the bullet, and you know, this is the other thing. He admits that the Gold Cup,
yes, that is
Cheltenham
interesting,
is not for him.
Yeah.
So his main targets now are 2 early seasons. So
boom, boom.
Will he be more ready this time?
Yeah.
Because he's not going to go to Cheltenham. So one of those, isn't it? I'm leaning towards him. I'm probably not going to bet in the race.
It is a lean race, I agree.
At the prices,
yeah,
you know, he doesn't need to improve to win the race, and he's the outsider of 3.
Well, before we go to Kim,
I love Lost in Translation.
Well, let's see if Pat Cooney can help us out with the market and the prices.
Well, at the moment, Lost in Translation at his price, around about 11.08, has been stronger than the main 2 rivals. And you look at Lost in Translation, when he won this last year, of course, he had the prep win at Carlisle prior to coming here. So he's coming here without the run this time around. But I go back to the festival last year. Most of the Tizard horses ran really, really below par. He didn't. He ran a mighty race in the Gold Cup. I still think he's the most likely winner of the race. But I don't know. At 11.08, he's got to beat 2 solid horses, hasn't he? Bristol de Moy, I think this is the one race of the year when you're allowed to fancy him and no one laughs at you. So he could quite conceivably win. And Clan de Zobo, again, at his price, you look at him and think, well, why isn't he the value? But I'm not sure in my own mind 3 miles, 1.5, maybe 3 miles is his optimum trip. So I suppose I keep coming back to Lost in Translation, really. And yeah, 11.08, the price wouldn't thrill me. But if I was on a quiz show and the speed boat was the first prize, I'd be picking him as my selection.
I have to say I've come down on him as well, but I'm with Kills. This is you could lean happily one way or another. What a great line that was. You fancy Bristol de Moy in this race without someone laughing at you. Yeah. That's quite right. Kim Bailey, tell us who's going to win the big race.
Well, I'm going to go for Paul Nicholls' Israel's Clan de Zobo because at the end of it, he's a class act. He is, as you say, outsider of the 3 horses, which seems to me absolutely bizarre. Paul Nicholls' horses running out their skin. I know it's an extra furlong from the King George, but I mean, at the end of it, I don't see the tight track. The ground won't be as heavy as it's been there in the past. I think he's the one for me.
I'll tell you what, if it ever goes wrong for you at the Racing Post, you've got a race planner's job there, haven't you? Let's face it. You're agreeing all the way down the line. Kim, he's going to plan your races for you. It's remarkable scenes, isn't it? Welcome on board the guys at myracing.com then. Great to have them on board as ever. Check out their Twitter site. You've got a huge following, and indeed the website for expert analysis and tips. They're double this week. 2:05 at Ascot. I think Imperial Aura will come unstuck with real steel, having its first run for Paul Nicholls, and then going up to Haydock in the Betfair Chase. They're keeping it simple, Bristol to May. OK, let's get some naps, shall we, from the team. Weekend winners. Paul Kealy.
I'm going to go Cooney in that stayed hurdle, I think. I was going to toy with Don Slowly in the last at Haydock, but I'll go Cooney in the 2:25 at Haydock.
OK. Kim Bailey, you like one at Haydock, don't you?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Imperial Alcazar because I just think he's an aggressive horse, and you know, I know he's hugely fancied, and it's a big weekend for the owners.
That's very interesting then, isn't it? Got the line there, looks competitive, but second favourite, Imperial Alcazar, well fancied. Pat Cooney?
Yeah, Huntingdon for me, the 12:48, a mare's novice chase, and it's number 2. She's a Super Mac, trained by the very shrewd Ian Jardine. She ran an air last time out. She nearly fell at the second last, recovered, almost fell at the last again, but she travelled so smoothly through the race. I think she would have won that race handily with two decent jumps. She'd probably be a decent enough price as well. Fingers crossed she jumps that bit better. If she jumps well, I think she'll win.
Thank you, Pat. OK, and completing the 4-time. I'm going to go for Pobbles Bay in the aforementioned last at Haydock as well. Another big race winner coming up for Evan Williams. Well, that's all we've got time then for, and another week's What a Shout. What a pleasure it's been to have Kim Bailey, the insight of the great man, on board. Kim, thanks ever so much.
Great pleasure. Good to be with you. Thank you very much.
Fingers crossed for Imperial Aura, and of course next weekend for the two big horses running at Newbury and Newcastle respectively. Hopefully we've given you an idea of which ones they may be. Paul Kealy, thanks very much. This has been a good week for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been good, yeah. Hopefully it's going to be a bit better tomorrow.
Yeah.
Find a few winners. Be nice.
Okay, fair enough.
Back in the office, unfortunately, but there you go.
Is that right? Yes, indeed. With me, actually, funnily enough. Pat Cooney.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Great show as always.
Thank you, Pat. We'll be back next week as ever, previewing the Ladbroke Trophy meeting at Newbury, and of course there's a fighting fifth in the mix as well. So don't forget, this has been Safe Gambling Week. Responsible gambling all the way. Don't bet in anger. That's what the big message here is at the Racing Post. We want you to play safely. Do bear that in mind. Of course, don't forget to download the free Racing Post app. You can do that on the App Store or Google Play Store indeed. And leave your comments below for the panellists. They love to read the feedback. Until then, enjoy the sport.